All right, so we're moving on to the movie mode now. We've made our way through the camera mode into the movie settings. First option here is obviously just to reset everything back to the factory default settings. A number of the items that we see in this menu setting are going to be very similar to ones that we've just talked about. The difference is that in this place, they only apply to movies being shot and not to still photos being taken. For instance, file naming. This is the second time we've seen this. This just simply renames the movie file names. You can choose the destination if you would prefer to have your movies separated from your still images. You want all your still images on card 2, but your movies on card 1, you can set that up right here by choosing where your movies are going to be stored to. Frame size and frame rate. This is probably the most important setting within the movie menu settings. This is controlling the resolution and the frame rate of your video. For most standard video, at least here in the United States, it's going to be 1920 by 1080. Over in Europe, they use 25 frames per second as their standard, but you can do double rates up at 50 or 60 if you have a desire to play back the resulting footage at half speed to make it look like slow motion. And so it also might be helpful if you're shooting very fast action and you want a little bit faster frame rate to capture that action a little bit more clearly or with a different look to it. But for general video, you're going to have it at 30 frames per second. As I say, some of those higher end users might like that 60p. But 1920 by 1080 will get you the full resolution for the full HD TV effect. Movie quality. We have the option of having this on high or normal, and this is basically going to determine the size of the files, how many megabits per second you are recording. High quality is 42 megabits per second. The normal is 24 megabits per second. If you're trying to get the highest quality, you can set it up to high. If you want to set it to norm, it's going to save some file space if you don't mind a little bit lower quality videos. You can control the sensitivity of the built-in stereo microphones. You can turn them off and use the plug-in microphone as well. Or you can manually set the volume up or down or let the camera choose where it needs to be. Depends on how much manual control of your movies you want to have. Frequency response. We have the option of wide or vocal. So if you knew that you were doing an audio interview with somebody, you might turn it to vocal, where it brings out human voices and makes them sound just a little bit better. Normally you would have it left on wide to pick up all types of ambient sound. Just depends a little bit on what type of video you are shooting. If you're in really windy situations, there is a wind noise reduction system that can turn on. And that will help reduce the amount of noise that you get under really windy situations, which is very hard to deal with on microphones. The image area. Now this does not affect the image quality, and this is one of the areas where you can shoot with a 1.2 crop or a DX crop and not impact image quality. Because this camera has so many pixels and so much resolution, you can shoot at those smaller crop rates and still get full HD quality. So if you need more telephoto range in the video mode, feel free to use this without any loss in image quality. We have our white balance, which is the same as white balance we saw before, only this one is dedicated to working in the movie setting modes. The same thing with picture controls. We talked about these earlier. A lot of the more advanced users these days will like the flat picture control, which is a very unsaturated type image. There is color to it, it's just not oversaturated in any way. And this is great for video that is going to be color graded or worked with by an editor who's going to add a little bit of saturation and contrast to their image to create their own look to the video. You can go in and manage these pictures controls just as we could in the still images as far as saving them and creating different types of files and storing them and transferring them back and forth from camera to camera. We have high ISO. We've talked about this before. This is just for the movie settings. Normally I'm going to leave that turned off. The ISO settings, same as the ISO settings before, but these are specifically for when you are shooting video, and we have many of the exact same controls. Not exactly the same because we don't have the shutter speed cutoff that we do in still images. A little bit more of a limitation when we're shooting movies because it's keeping that shutter speed going as it's recording. Time-lapse photography, we talked about this before, but in this case, rather than ending up with a bunch of individual photos, you end up with a finished video. So if you were hoping to not do any of that work in post, you wanted a finished product that you could work with right then and there, this gets you a final complete video. The downside to this, from somebody who has shot a lot of time lapses, is occasionally you want to drop a few frames out of there, either to control the amount of time, or somebody stood in front of your camera, or something awkward happened, or somebody turned a light on, and you want to just delete that individual frame. You won't have that option here, but it is a very convenient option if you just want to get a nice quick time lapse with something quickly to work from it.